Hello fellas. Welcome back to Top 5 Choices. Today's video I am gonna do a detailed review and pick the top 5 best compact camera for travel 2021. After doing proper researches, we came to the conclusion that meets the best in terms of overall. Kindly leave a like if you find this helpful, and I'd appreciate if you subscribe to my channel and turn on post notifications if you haven't. We will be also providing affiliates link to purchase from Amazon. Kindly use to for best offers and purchase from anywhere in the world. We'll be back with more videos. The Canon G5X2 is significantly smaller than a conventional DSLR with an APS-C sensor. This tiny package houses a 20.1 MP 1-inch CMOS image sensor, which is typically what we find in compact cameras. It gives it a crop factor of 2.7x in comparison to full-frame DSLRs. It has a focal length of 8.8 to 44 mm, or the full-frame equivalent of 24 to 120 mm, covering a good chunk of the wide to telephoto spectrum. The aperture starts at f/1.8 at 24 mm and goes down to f/2.8 at the max optical zoom of 5x at 120 mm. The lens is also stabilized. The most significant upgrade comes with the Digic 8 image processor, which is Canon's latest engine and gives this camera fast shooting capabilities as well as the ability to record in 4K. There's a 3-inch articulating LCD on the Canon PowerShot G5X Mark II that can flip up by 180 degrees and downwards by 45. For bright conditions where this display may not suffice, there's also an electronic viewfinder. It is a 2-stage EVF which needs to be popped up and pulled out, and turns on when it detects you're getting close to it. As mentioned earlier, it's tiny and can easily fit in your pocket. The front has a subtle rubbery finish with a slightly protruding grip that helps with the ergonomics. Yes, it's not big enough to accommodate all 4 fingers, but for a camera this petite, it gets the job done reasonably well. All the controls and dials are located on the top of the camera, including the power button, zoom slider, flash toggle, and the EV compensation ring. The ring is ridged and has ample stops for accurate mode toggling. The EVF and the flash module also reside on the top. On paper, the 24 to 120 f/1.8 to 2.8 seemed like a versatile range, covering the entire spectrum from wide to telephoto with a respectable aperture. However, the limitations brought by a 1-inch sensor become evident quickly, especially in aspects such as depth of field and noise levels. Having said that, there are no cameras this compact with a sensor more prominent than the Canon PowerShot G5X Mark IIs. The image quality is unsurprisingly pretty good, thanks to Canon's color science and image processing. The Sony RX107 is the company's latest pocketable 1-inch sensor compact. It uses the same 24 to 200 mm equivalent f2.8 to 4.5 lens as its predecessor but features a more capable, easier to use autofocus system. This comes in addition to the already impressive capabilities we saw in the Mark V, including very fast continuous shooting and high-quality 4K video capture. And, for the first time in the series, the Mark VII has a mic socket for improved audio recording. The Mark VII can shoot at up to 20 frames per second with no viewfinder blackout, specs that are a match for the company's flagship A9 sports camera. And it's this capability, along with the enhanced AF, that prompts Sony to talk about the power of an A9 in your pocket. To be clear, though, it does not share its hardware with that model. The 24 to 200 mm equivalent lens is the same one used on the Mark V. It offers an f2.8 to 4.5 maximum aperture range, which is how the camera is able to be so small, despite the impressive zoom range. The camera's aperture drops off fairly rapidly, reaching f4.0 by about 40 mm equivalent. This is already 1f slower than the camera's brightest aperture, meaning it's letting in half as much light, which will mean an image quality disadvantage compared with anything with a brighter lens. However, the lens is still considerably brighter than that of the Panasonic ZS200, the only other camera to offer this combination of sensor size, zoom range and compactness. Like its predecessors, we feel the RX107 works best as a point-and-shoot camera. It has both a smoothly rotating control ring around the lens, which can be used to adjust a variety of settings, and a small, rather fiddly clicking wheel on the rear plate, if you do want to exercise some control. There's also a touchscreen, but, if anything, the new autofocus system reduces the need for it, especially as it can't be used to operate the camera's FN menu. On a camera you can simply point at your chosen subject, then half press and recompose with a good degree of confidence that it'll keep tracking the right thing. There's little need to manually specify an AF point. The RX107 uses the same NPVX1 battery. The Panasonic Lumix LX100II is a 17-megapixel enthusiast zoom compact with a 24 to 75mm equivalent f1.7 to 2.8 lens. It uses up to 85% of the area of a 4/3 size sensor to give a choice of aspect ratios without narrowing the field of view. Like the Mark I, the LX100II features extensive external control points, but it now also gains a touchscreen to speed up processes such as AF point positioning and interacting with the customizable function menu. The LX100II doesn't mess with the formula too much. The controls are familiar, and now there are additional custom buttons that can save a trip to the menus. The new touchscreen is much needed, and Panasonic's implementation remains one of the best. For those who want even more customizable buttons, you can store 5 more on a tab on the screen which slides out from the side. Something I was hoping for that the Mark II didn't have was a tilting display, which didn't pan out. Oh well, there's always the Mark III. Back when Panasonic came out with the LX3, their first true multi-aspect camera, I didn't feel a need to ever leave 4 to 3. Things have changed dramatically since then. My Samsung smartphone shoots at 16 to 9, so that ratio doesn't seem as awkward to me as it did in 2008. I've also started to post more on Instagram, so having 1-to-1 just a switch away eliminates the need to crop. The wireless functions on the LX100II make getting those square photos online even easier. You can have them automatically transferred to your smartphone, and it's straight to Instagram, or wherever, from there. The Sony ZV-1 is a 20MP compact camera geared towards vlogging. It has a new and novel directional microphone next to the flash hot shoe, and there's a fully articulating touchscreen display. The ZV-1 shoots in 4K up to 30p and Full HD up to 120p and features a 24 to 70mm equivalent f1.8 to 2.8 lens. Although the Sony ZV-1 is designed specifically with vloggers in mind, it's quite capable as a conventional compact stills camera too. If you're a hybrid shooter who is interested in capturing both video and stills, but doesn't want to carry around 2 cameras, the ZV-1 has a lot to offer. The ZV-1's ergonomics might seem a little quirky at first, but are fairly intuitive once you start shooting. There's a modest grip on the right-hand side, and it's comfortable to use when shooting in selfie mode or a standard shooting position. When you are shooting with the camera held out at arm's length with the lens facing yourself, you can control the zoom rocker with your thumb and use your index finger to hit record or release the shutter. The ability to easily swap between shooting videos and stills is one of the greatest assets of the ZV-1, made easier if you are using the memory recall functions in the camera. These let you customize banks of settings that include your shooting mode, auto, PASM, video and so on, exposure settings, image or video quality settings, and quickly swap between them. The ZV-1's included Fuzzy Mic windscreen does an excellent job of cutting down on distracting wind noise when recording video, but unfortunately it also covers up the on/off button on the camera. On the back of the camera you'll find the camera's single control ring, which is the only way to adjust shutter speed and aperture while shooting. It's not that bad if you're using the ZV-1 to capture stills, but can be cumbersome for vloggers since the only adjustments that can be made using the touchscreen are for focus. So if you want to adjust anything other than your AF area, you'll have to flip the camera back around. The ZV-1 offers impressive image quality. While shooting, I tended to keep it set to ISO auto with a range of ISO 125/6400. The ZV-1 generally did a good job regardless of if I was shooting in P, A, S or M mode. The Canon PowerShot G7X III is the third in a series of one-type sensor compacts aimed at smartphone camera upgraders and enthusiast photographers looking for a small second camera. Its core photography features, notably its fast 24 to 100mm equivalent f1.8 to 2.8 lens, are very similar to the G7X II that preceded it, but Canon has given the Mark III a new stacked CMOS sensor and Digigate processor that together promise better image quality and performance. The biggest changes in the G7X Mark III are to its suite of video features, which now includes the option to live stream video, a useful feature for vloggers. Resolution has been bumped up to 4K, with 30p available out of the box and 24p coming via a future firmware update. The most notable feature on the PowerShot G7X Mark III is its lens, which is the same as the other models in the series. Its lens is equivalent to 24 to 100mm and has a maximum aperture of f1.8 to 2.8. We'll discuss the quality of said lens in a bit. The G7X III looks and feels like a premium product, with a solid feeling body and red accents around the dials on its top plate. The dials have enough resistance to turning that you won't accidentally rotate them. There's little to distinguish the G7X III from its predecessor.